Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm just going to test the audio here. If you guys don't mind just letting me know that you can hear me okay, just in the chat, let me know, and we'll get started in a few minutes. I'll give it until 11:05 to get started, just so that we have everybody starting at the same time. All right, just let me know that you can hear me. Awesome. Okay, sounds good. So I will be back in 4 minutes. Thanks, guys. All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jane Stevens. I'm the training manager here at Zolo, and today we're going to be talking about buyers. So working with buyers, and really I'm going to jump into things and really recommend that hopefully by the end of this webinar, you put together some sort of buyer presentation. Most of us have a listing presentation. We're ready for sellers to call us and go in and do a presentation. We're ready with, some sort of PowerPoint presentation or, something maybe manually that you hand out. So I'm really going to encourage you guys to maybe think about doing something like that for buyers as well. I think that will increase the loyalty when you're working with buyers. So I hear a lot of times, we reach out to clients, maybe we even take them out on showings and, they disappear. And, why would they leave or why would they stick with you? I think implementing a buyer presentation is really important just to, again, create that loyalty. So we'll talk about that and what you might want to include in a buyer presentation. So let's talk about, first of all, where the buyers are coming from. So of course, if you have your buyer leads turned on, then that's great. You're going to have them coming into your CRM. So you're going to be notified by email and by text message that you have a buyer request. And so of course you want to be getting back to them within those first 5 minutes as quickly as possible, just so that you're still top of mind and they're still on the website looking for properties. So we're very fortunate here at Zolo that that's the situation. You get leads right into your CRM. But then, of course, there are some ways that you can do a little bit of extra digging in your CRM to find additional buyers. So instead of just waiting for those buyers to request information and contact you, maybe there's a way that you can find buyers in your CRM. And there is, in fact, a way. It's the reverse search tool that we have in our CRM. So you can find that under the Tools drop-down menu and select on reverse search, and that will take you to this screen right here. And it's going to ask you to put in an MLS number. So maybe there's a property down the street from you or around the corner that you would love to sell, or maybe it's in the price point that you really want to be working in. So find that property on Zolo, use that as a tool. So you can see it right here. You can look up, as I said, a neighboring property, something that you would really like to either sell or find buyers looking in that price point. So copying and pasting that MLS numbers, you can take it right off the Zolo site, put it into that reverse search, and by clicking on Find Buyers, you're literally going to get a list of people who have looked at that property on the Zolo website. So this is the list that you will see. And when the list populates, you'll notice that there will either be a green asterisk, meaning that they are a new lead, somebody who has just signed up for the Zolo, to the Zolo website, just starting to look at properties. And you'll also see ones that have that hot flame. And so that one will probably already be in a Zolo agent CRM because they've requested information about a property. So hopefully somebody has reached out to that lead already. But as I said, you do have these leads that are new. So the ones with the green asterisks likely haven't been contacted by an agent yet. So you can approach these buyers if you're wanting to find additional buyers than the ones that are just being sent to your CRM. So clicking on any of these leads will take you to their client profile. And again, if you see that there has been communication with another Zolo agent before, then obviously respect that existing relationship. But if there hasn't been any communication, then you can reach out to these buyers, right? Thank them for registering to the Zolo website and just ask them, have a conversation about what it is that they might be looking for. And hopefully you can show them either that property that they looked at online, or you can show them something else in that price point. So, don't just wait for those hot leads to come into your CRM. Do a little bit of digging. We have this reverse search tool here as well, which is a great way to find buyers. This is also, it's typically a tool that you want to be presenting in a listing presentation, so that when you go in, I think every agent, when they go into a listing presentation, will say that they have buyers for that particular property. And this is a way that you can show those sellers that you do in fact have buyers. But we're talking about working with buyers here today, not sellers. So I'll just mention that, but really this is also a tool for you to find buyers looking in a particular price point. So use a reverse search. And as I said, go through the new leads and contact them. It's a little bit of a colder call. They're not expecting your call back like a hot lead would, because a hot lead has requested information about a property. So they're wanting a call back. So treat it as a little bit more of a colder call, and just, again, thank them for registering to the website and try to find out what it is that they're looking for. So, using those two things will obviously bring you buyers. So you have your leads turned on, you have your buyers that are coming into your CRM. You also are using the reverse search tool, but maybe you can add to that as well. I'll just make a couple of other suggestions here to add to your, buyer list. So you might want to have a social media platform that you use, such as a Facebook fan page. So you can have, that sort of promoting what it is that you do, whatever it is that you've sold, have some sort of a business page. It also gives you credibility. So if a Zolo lead contacts you through the website, they might do a little bit of research online to find out, how long you've been in real estate, if you're an active agent. So having a social media profile, in addition to a website, gives you that credibility, but definitely it is a way to also generate buyer leads. So implement a social media page, it's free. And definitely have an email service that you use, and generate maybe a monthly newsletter. I recommend Exact for this. It's IXACT. It's probably the most affordable CRM platform. So you can enter in all of the contacts that you have coming through your Zolo CRM, and anything that comes to you through social media or whatever other platforms you have. And then, you can stay in touch with them on a monthly basis. So Exact Contact I recommend, because not only are they a CRM, but they also have that email template that you can basically use and generate every month. So most of the content is already in there, and you can just simply personalize it. So that just keeps you top of mind. If you have a conversation with a lead today, they may not be ready for 6 months, maybe a year. So if you're consistently sending out monthly newsletters, then you're staying top of mind with that buyer that you've had a conversation with, so that when they are ready, hopefully they think of you and they choose you. So just a couple of things to maybe implement in addition to what we're offering here at Zolo, so that you do end up working with a number of buyers, right? That's the ultimate goal. So let's talk about that discussion a little bit. So calling the buyers. We talk about pre-qualifying leads quite a bit when we're talking about leases. And of course, when you're talking to buyers, you also want to know some information. And this is an acronym, LP Mama. If you haven't heard it before, this is kind of the information that you want to be gathering over the course of a phone call. So obviously, what location are they looking at buying in? And that may change, right? And you might, carry on the search if they start in Mississauga, but then they end up in Guelph. It's up to you if you want to do that distance, but definitely finding out what location they're hoping to stay in, what their price point is, and oftentimes their price point will determine the location, what their motivation is, what their timeline is, because really you also want to have maybe, I like to call it a hot sheet of hopefully you have 10 to 15 buyers on there that are really motivated, that are ready to buy something within the next 30 to 90 days. So asking them that question about their timeline will, have you tailor your services to them. So if they're not ready to buy for a year, maybe that's somebody that you put on that email list so that you're sending them monthly newsletters. But if they are really motivated to go, then you're sending them listings from Treb, you're following up, you're asking when they want to go see showings. So it's really important to know their motivation. Of course, we also want to know if they're already working with an agent. If they are, then we have to respect that relationship, and just let them know if they are working with an agent that they should be scheduling any showings with them directly. I think oftentimes we get leads calling us thinking we're the listing agent, or they're not, really understanding how the real estate industry works. And, they think you're available to just show them properties, but they have intentions of using somebody else. So definitely ask that during the initial call and make sure that they're not already working with an agent. Another good question to ask is, of course, whether or not they've been pre-approved. And there's two schools of thought on this. Sometimes realtors will, not show a property until a buyer has been pre-approved. I'm going to suggest with online leads especially that you go to the in-person meeting. Even if they're not pre-approved, hopefully they have an idea of what their budget is. But if you simply have a conversation with them and then pass them off to a mortgage agent, the chances of them coming back to you, if they haven't even met you, are obviously less than if they have met you. So I would recommend, even if they haven't been pre-approved yet, they're motivated, they're looking, they're interested. So go and show them a few properties, put them in touch with Zolo Mortgages, and they'll keep you informed as to whether or not, they are qualified or how long it's going to take them. And then, of course, setting the appointment. So this is kind of the acronym that you want to keep in mind so that you're asking all of these questions during that initial phone call. So, at the end of the call, hopefully you're converting it to a showing. So set that appointment, schedule not just, an appointment to see the property that they inquired about, but maybe suggesting other ones that they can see that are similar, right? So sending them a list from whatever your MLS system is, and then scheduling those appointments. So these are some things to keep in mind when talking to buyers over the phone. The other thing here is really breaking down the process. So really explaining to them what it is that they can expect. And this is where you're going to start to create this loyalty. This is what I'm talking about in terms of having a buyer presentation, something that you might want to send to them after the phone call that you have, before the showings, sending them an email, confirming their search criteria, and maybe including something like this buyer's roadmap. And it basically explains all of the steps involved. And this is something that you can take time to explain as well once you do meet them in person. And once maybe you've completed 3 showings, you have a buyer presentation that maybe you print out, and this might be included as part of that. So obviously you want them meeting with you, with a real estate professional, and then you can talk about getting pre-approved if they haven't already gotten pre-approved. If they want to work with their bank, that's great, but definitely ask them if they're open to a second opinion, because mortgage brokers, they'll have more rates than the bank, they'll have more lenders available. So definitely putting them in touch with Zolo Mortgages. And then, of course, once they do have, their number, they know what it is that they can spend, then you can really fine tune the search criteria, right? And the area that they're going to be looking in. And then you can really go ahead and start looking at properties that they're eventually going to buy, hopefully. Talk to them about the offer process. Maybe part of, if you're going to do this, a buyer presentation by email after your initial phone call, send them the forms, send them what an offer looks like, and send them the forms that are explained. So you can go to the OREA website, you can download those forms. There's writing in red for each and every clause, every paragraph that's in there. So include those forms when you're sending an email so that they're familiar with the process, right? So you're explaining the process, you're making them understand, and they're feeling comfortable, not just with the process, but with you as well, that you're knowledgeable and you're going to help them win in multiples, if that's the situation. So talking to them about that as well, what's involved with negotiations, if it is a multiple offer situation, how you handle that. And we can talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But then also talking to them about what it means to have an accepted offer. So their deposit, recommending 5% of the purchase price as their deposit, finding out if they have that available to them so that when they do go to offer and it does get accepted, they're able to deliver that deposit to the listing brokerage within 24 hours of it being accepted. So talking to them about that so that, again, it's not a surprise at the last minute that they have to have these funds available. You've already told them the process beforehand. Final details include, of course, any due diligence. So if it's a condo, then they're going to have to review the status certificate. Hopefully you have a lawyer that, you can put them in touch with or recommend a few that they can reach out to so that they can have assistance in reviewing that status certificate. But also it, of course, includes any inspection if that was in the contract. And then, of course, financing. So if they have to confirm their financing, those would be the final details before it's a firm offer. So talking to them about the difference of having an accepted offer versus a firm offer. And then at that point, once it is firm, the lawyers and the mortgage brokers, they take over before closing day. So explaining this process, having some sort of a roadmap, I think really helps you stay on point as well in explaining it. All right, another good thing to have during this conversation, this initial conversation, is of course the property information in front of you. So make sure that you're logged into your MLS system, make sure that you have the MLS listing in front of you, talk to them, of course, about what it's listed for, and making sure that it's still available. So, if it's sold conditionally, maybe they're not showing that one anymore, but there hopefully are other condos that are available that you can show within the same price point. Possession date, usually it says 30 to 60 days, whatever the situation is, find out what that's going to be. And then down at the bottom as well, it'll tell you some more information. Anything that's in brokerage remarks is, not available to them to see publicly. So let them know if there's any additional information in here, such as, a monthly fee. Is there a rental item that they need to be aware of? And of course, here you'll also see if they are expecting multiple offers, if they're holding offers off. In other words, they're asking that people present offers on, Friday at 5 or whatever the day and time is. You'll see that there and you can inform them of that. And then, of course, if it is sold conditional, you also see down here at the bottom what it's conditional on and when that condition expires. So, if you are having this conversation and you're trying to get them to see other condos, but they don't want to for whatever reason, or this is the only property that they're really interested in, then diarize this date. So if the condition is set to expire, on Tuesday, then you want to schedule a follow-up so that you have a reason to call this buyer back and provide them with the information. Did it firm up or did it fail? So diarizing those sorts of dates, again, so that you have a follow-up reason. So paying attention to that condition expiry. All right, so let's break down this phone call. So definitely introducing yourself as an agent with Zolo.ca. I think if you say Zolo Realty, people aren't as familiar with that as they are with the website, of course. So introducing yourself as an agent with Zolo.ca. And if it's a call that you are returning, then just remind them what it was that they were looking at. So I see that you inquired about 123 Main Street, and you can always start the conversation with how can I help you? Of course, the end goal is going to be to convert this call to a showing. So starting the conversation with how can I help you and ending the conversation with when would you like to see the property, it's in between those two questions that you're going to find out what their search criteria is, what their motivation, going back to that LP Mama acronym, going through all of that so that you have a good understanding as to what it is that they're looking for. So asking them what their search criteria is, what their budget is, what their motivation is, and then at some point, after you've let them do all the talking, you want to turn the tables so that now you have an opportunity to explain the process. So that buyer's roadmap that I was talking about before, you want to go through the process with them so that they understand exactly what to expect. And then ending the call with that conversion. Hopefully you're able to schedule that appointment. So conducting the phone call, with how can I help you? And then when would you like to see the property in order to convert those calls to showings? And then in between having a conversation about what it is that they're looking for and what the process is. So definitely following up that conversation with an email. So including your, in the email, confirming their search criteria, confirming hopefully an appointment that you were able to schedule. And then if you do have a website, maybe sending them a link to your website to the About Me page so that they get to know you a little bit better. You might want to prepare a buyer questionnaire. This is part of that buyer presentation that I've been recommending. It could be a buyer questionnaire that you create on Google Forms so that it's really easy for them to fill out and provide you with additional information that you may not have gotten over the course of the phone call. And then sending a buyer presentation. I always recommend a website called Breakthrough Broker, and that is something that you can go to. They have a ton of material that is all free and available to you. So you can download a buyer presentation from Breakthrough Broker and then customize it, obviously, to yourself. The other thing to set up, of course, is going to be the TREB listing. So going into your MLS system, making sure that you're selecting properties that match their search criteria so that you can send them properties and they get notified every day of new listings that match their search criteria. So definitely right after that phone call and before the showing, you want to be in touch with them. You want to be sending them an email that includes all of this information and includes a little bit about yourself and includes pieces of your buyer presentation, including that buyer's roadmap that I shared with you earlier. All right. I jumped over the last slide, so I'll just come back to it here. So of course, always remembering to enter your calls in the CRM. So super important. Obviously, this isn't a CRM training, but just a quick reminder to enter that activity into your CRM. Each and every time you have a phone conversation with this particular lead, you want to go in and update your activity with a call. Yes. Add notes. It's going to be impossible to remember all of the information. So definitely add those notes so that when you do follow up with them in a week or in a month's time, or they call you back, you have proper notes in there reminding you what it is that they were looking for. So use the schedule follow-up button as well, so that, again, if a property has sold conditionally, you can call them back with sold information. So just a reminder there to not forget about your CRM. All right, so let's jump back to where we were here. I'm just going to turn off the cameras. 1 second. All right. So this is just an example of a follow-up email that you might want to send. So thank you for your interest in properties in whatever area it was that you spoke about. And then, as I said before, reiterating their search criteria. So further to our discussion, I'll send you listings that match the following search criteria, and you can set out their area, their budget, their number of bedrooms, the type of property that they're interested in. And then as a buyer specialist, I can show you properties that might be of interest to you. Please let me know once you see something you like, right? So you're sending that email, you're confirming their search criteria, you're sending them a separate email directly from your MLS system, which includes all of the properties that are currently available. And even maybe giving them a heads up, just letting them know this first email that I'm going to send you from MLS is going to be quite lengthy. It's going to have a list of everything that's available right now. But then also letting them know that they will be notified of new listings that hit the market as soon as they hit the market. So really paying attention to those ones, because those ones are going to be the ones that are newest and the ones that you'll want to schedule showings for. All right. So Breakthrough Broker, I mentioned this before, so these are the templates that you can download. So again, breakthroughbroker.com, there's a ton of materials there, and the buyer presentation is already all set up for you. All you have to do is customize it. The buyer's roadmap is something that you'll find in this template. So again, even if you just use that buyer's roadmap independently, attaching it to your email when you follow up after that initial phone call, that's something that you can definitely incorporate, and it makes the buyer informed about the process. All right. So this is what's included in that buyer's presentation that you'll find in Breakthrough Broker. You'll find there's a questionnaire, you'll find there's checklists. So there's fun things that you can include in there, but definitely also bring with you the MLS information sheet. So for whatever property it is that you are going to see, also have those printed out. And the buyer representation agreement, of course, is a good thing to bring with you and working with a realtor. The explain forms is something that you might want to attach, as I said before, to an email. But if you're bringing the buyer representation agreement, hopefully that's something that you get signed, during the course of your first meeting with them. So let's talk about the buyer representation agreement quickly here. Just going to jump over this this questionnaire. You can take a quick look at it as I flip through these. So again, it's just asking more information that you might have already captured during the initial phone call. But there's a checklist here of what they might be interested in, financing, and pricing as well. So there's a bunch of information that you can you can use and create your own Google form so it's easier for them to complete if this is something you want to incorporate into your buyer presentation. All right, so let's talk about these showings. So taking them out on showings, of course, you're going to be booking these online or calling the listing brokerage to schedule the appointment. And as well, you'll notice here whether or not they're holding off on offers and whether or not you're going to be in a multiple offer situation. So just a quick note there about scheduling your showings and of course, making sure that you don't share those lockbox codes with your clients. That is something that you keep confidentially. You must attend all showings, and please remember to cancel if you're not able to make it. Even if you show up at the property and your clients decide they don't like it from the outside, they don't want to go in, that's still a cancellation. So we've had situations before where if the listing agent complains that nobody showed up, then it does result in a fine. So just a quick reminder to cancel your appointment if you're not able to attend, even if it's a last minute cancellation. All right, so we've talked a lot about preparing the client. So this is another roadmap that, again, you can find in Breakthrough Broker. It's just laid out differently. So, just having something that helps you stay on point and go through the different stages with your buyers. So this is just another example that you can find on Breakthrough Broker. But let's talk about that BRA and working with a realtor. Hopefully, as I said, you're bringing these blank forms with you to a showing. It doesn't always happen that we get a BRA signed right away. You might have to do a few showings with them. And most times it's not even signed until that you're actually preparing an offer for them. But bring it to a showing. Obviously, the goal is to have them commit to you and you commit to them. So I'll quickly talk about how to fill this in, just because it's between the brokerage and your buyer, so who it is that you're speaking to. And then the term of the agreement should be less than 6 months. If it's more, then that's when they would initial this first space right here. Otherwise, it's not necessary. But the thing I really wanted to point out here is the property type and geographic location. To say GTA is too vague, it's too general, and it won't stand up in court if there was ever a dispute. You really want to make sure that you are specifying the areas, and there could be multiple areas, but you want to specify which areas you're going to be assisting them in. So if it's Toronto and Mississauga, state that clearly as opposed to GTA. All right. So yeah, here we've got just the signature page, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you are preparing the BRA at the time of the offer, let's talk about preparing the offer. So of course, you want to reach out to the listing agent. That's one of the first things you're going to want to do in preparing an offer. Find out what the closing date is, what the sellers are hoping for, and hopefully you have a buyer who's flexible and will offer that closing date. If you are in a multiple offer situation, then obviously the less conditions, the better. So you don't want to be going in with financing and inspection. Hopefully that particular listing agent has prepared a pre-listing inspection report. So hopefully that's prepared so that your clients don't have to incur the expense. They don't have to put it in as a condition, but that's not always available. So you might want to put that in there, but hopefully they have something that you can go in firm with. Financing as well, really encourage your clients if they are interested in properties and it's going to be a multiple offer situation, really encourage them to speak to their bank or their mortgage broker to get confirmation of their pre-approval so that they know what they can afford and you don't have to go in with that condition. So really making sure that that you're going in as strong as possible. And of course, when you're preparing the offer, you need to have your clients available. So make sure that they'll be available to answer your calls because things change. If there's, again, in the multiple offer situation, there may be an opportunity to improve your offer. So you want to be able to be in touch with your clients, have them available so that you can make changes as necessary. All right. So this is, again, just a screenshot of of an MLS listing. So if you were submitting an offer on this particular condo, obviously you want to be pulling up comparables. So condos are great for comparables because oftentimes there's a lot of activity. So you can go ahead and in your MLS system, entering in the search criteria so you can find out what other condos have sold for. Obviously, you go in there, select the condo type, and then you want to be looking at unavailable properties that recently sold. So selecting that criteria will then allow you to further define your criteria. So if it is a condo building and there's several buildings, so there's maybe 3 or 4 buildings, then putting in that range. So maybe it's 5200 to 5300 Dundas Street, so that will capture all 3 or 4 buildings, however many there are. And then of course you don't want to be putting in the price. That's what you're looking to find out. And you want to make sure that the last status is sold. And again, make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So if it's a 1-bedroom condo and den, make sure that those are the condos that are going to come up in your list. So define the number of bedrooms and den if necessary. So going ahead and selecting that will give you, of course, as I said, with condos, oftentimes a lot of results. And so just making sure that you're sorting them by sold dates, that you have the most recent sold date up at the top, and then sending those to your client, talking to them about, you know, why this one might have sold for 408 while the other one sold for 385. Taking a look at the photos, making sure that, again, you know, it's in similar condition to the property that you're looking at so that you can really determine a fair offer. So taking a look at the comparables and sending them to your client for discussion, making sure that you're not sending them, you know, the last 6 months, really defining it probably to the last, you know, couple of months. I wouldn't go more than 3 months. And if there's a lot of activity like there is with this one, then you might even just need to send them the last month. All right. So going ahead and completing the offer, you're going to want to do that from your MLS system, and you're going to want to click on web forms, which will be a link up at the top. And the reason for that is that it will copy type most of the information that is on the MLS listing so that you don't have to go ahead and type it yourself. So you want to make sure that you're saving the MLS listing and then you're going into web forms directly from there. Just one moment here. I'm just going to make sure that's muted. All right. Yes. So here we go. The schedule, saving all of this, and any disclosures. All right, so talking about web forms, this is where you're going to go ahead and, actually this is an old screenshot of what it looks like, but going directly from the MLS listing and then clicking on web forms will take you to this screen here. So if you've done it directly from your MLS listing, you won't have to create a new transaction. It'll pop up with a dialog box asking you to fill in the information. So the address will already be there, and then the information that you want to put in is obviously the template that you're going to be using. So there are 3 templates that we choose from at Zolo. If it's an offer on a condo, then you would be selecting Zolo residential offer condo, and you won't have to remember all of the forms that you need because just by clicking on the template, all of those forms will be auto-populated for you. So creating that transaction, here you'll see all of the documents that get populated, and you're going to find them under forms. So just a couple of things here. We do a webinar specifically on web forms just because this is, you know, we do a live transaction just so that you can see exactly how it all plays out. But this is just an overview of where you go in order to prepare that offer. So you would go into forms, and that's where you would find all of the forms necessary, which are part of that template. So again, you won't have to remember what you need to include. It'll all be there for you. So completing all of the forms from the form section, and then a reminder here that once everything has been accepted, if you have an accepted offer, then you're going to need to come back in and upload those to the checklist. So those are going to be the 2 main points that you have to go into, or 2 main folders. So the forms and the checklist. So again, we do have a webinar coming up for web forms, and you can see a live transaction and how to upload those documents. But just a quick reminder as well to change the status if you do have a deal firm up, because that's notifying the deals department to take a look at the documents that you've uploaded from your checklist. So just selecting firm deal will notify the deals department about that. So let's talk about the actual forms, and I'm just going to jump ahead here, just one moment. Let me know if you guys have any questions so far, or anything that you've included in a buyer presentation that you've found helpful. I'd love to hear from you guys. Otherwise, let's talk about presenting the offer. So once you have prepared all of the documents in web forms, then you'll want to present it to the listing agent. So most of the time, you know, we don't have the opportunity these days to present in person. Most of the time it's done by email. So just making sure that, you know, you're stating in the email that it is an offer to purchase. If you just put the address in the subject line, then, you know, chances are, you know, get missed. Maybe the listing agent just thinks it's a question, but if you put in their offer to purchase, then that's highlighting the fact that you are sending in an offer to purchase, and it won't get ignored. So introducing your clients, definitely this is where we have, you know, the opportunity to really introduce our clients to them. But of course, you know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So if you have a family photo, that's something that you might want to include, and ask your buyers to maybe even prepare an introduction letter. So I've had buyers in the past who have prepared this, and, you know, you learn more about them, about why they like the property, you know, what their motivation is. because they're writing this lovely letter to the sellers, usually about, you know, what it is that they love about the home and where they are, you know, in life and why it works for them, right? So it's often a good idea to include a buyer introduction letter if they're willing to provide one for you. And then just stating the details of the offer. So if you know it's a good offer, stating what the purchase price is, what the deposit is, you know, and the possession date, of course. So any conditions that are in there, you might want to include that as well. And again, if you're in multiple offers, then you want to go in as firm as possible. So you don't want to have too many conditions in there if you can avoid that. So taking a look at, again, the MLS listing sheet, this is where you're going to find out whether or not, you know, you can expect offers or multiple offers. So, you know, oftentimes in the brokerage remarks, there will be a day and time stated for offers, in which case, you know, again, the chances are high that you'll be in a multiple offer situation. Also take a look at the price. So taking a look at price and doing the comparables so that you also can, again, set your buyer's expectations. So this particular property was listed in Oakville and it was listed for $999. Doing the comparables, this property should have actually been listed for 1.3. And in fact, looking at the address history, it had been listed for 1.3 and then it was lowered to 1.2 and it wasn't selling. So they finally reduced it to $999. Of course, they received multiple offers, all of which were rejected because the seller was still wanting, you know, that 1.2 to 1.3 price point. So prepare your clients. Know that, you know, it may be listed for $999, but maybe their expectations, the seller's expectations, is going to be much higher and perhaps out of their price range. So, you know, informing your clients of that as well. So again, this is another, you know, listing that did sell for over ask, which, you know, of course, is something that can be expected in multiple offer situations. So again, just letting your clients know about that. All right, so offer guidelines, really what it is that you should be including in the offer. Of course, you're stating the purchase price, giving the closing date that the sellers prefer, ideally, and then no conditions if possible. Again, if they don't have an inspection report, then, you know, it's understandable if they want to go in with that condition. But if you are going to go in with, you know, the request for an inspection, then maybe what you do is you schedule it for the next day. So along with your offer, you say that you've also scheduled, you've tentatively booked a home inspection for tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if your offer is accepted, we can remove that condition right away. So again, you know, if you have to put in conditions, just be a little bit creative about, you know, how you might present that so that it still gets accepted. If buyers, of course, don't want to or agree to not putting in certain conditions, there are a couple of things that you should do or could do. One of them is keeping it in the Schedule A, crossing it out and having them initial it, and then also having this Form 127 completed. So basically, this is the buyer acknowledging that they are submitting an offer without these particular conditions. So whether it's financing or the sale of their home, or as I said before, the obtaining of a home inspection report, they can initial that saying that they you know, are aware that they're submitting an offer without these conditions. All right. So if the offer does get accepted, that's always very exciting. That's not the end of the job. There are still things to do once you have an accepted offer. So once you've gone through the whole process, if you do have a condition in there, again, let's use the example of having a home inspection, then you want to go ahead and if they're satisfied with the home inspection, you'll want to complete a notice of fulfillment of conditions or a waiver. So the difference here is a notice of fulfillment of conditions is notifying the seller that you have conducted the home inspection and you're satisfied with it. A waiver would be that you decided not to do the inspection. So that's when you would complete the waiver instead of the notice of fulfillment. So typically you're going to be filling out the notice of fulfillment to satisfy those conditions in the contract. So if it was conditional on financing and inspection, then you would basically just copy and paste those two clauses in the notice of fulfillment, and that would make it a firm deal. All right, so after everything has been accepted, of course, you want to email that accepted offer to the listing agent, to your clients. They're going to need a copy of the offer as well as the MLS listing for their mortgage broker, asking them who their lawyer is going to be so that you can also forward that accepted offer to their preferred lawyer. Making sure that deposit gets delivered, the deposit check gets delivered the next day. If it says upon acceptance, that means 24 hours after acceptance. So your client has to go and drop that off at the listing brokerage. And of course, refer mortgage brokers and inspectors if you haven't already done that. And then, so delivering the notice of fulfillment and waiver, if you do have 5 days to complete those conditions, then making sure you're doing that on time. Emailing all of the paperwork, that's wrong actually. You want to be uploading all of your paperwork now to web forms. That's how the deal department will review all of your paperwork. So uploading it to that checklist that I mentioned earlier. And then of course, after the fact, closer to closing, you still want to make sure that you're in touch with your client. So reminding them to get insurance, transfer utilities, just confirming that everything is going well. And of course, following up with them so that, when the time comes for them to do another transaction, again, hopefully they think of you. So quite a few things to do even after you get the offer accepted. So let me know if you guys have questions. I feel like I raced through that today. It must have been the coffee. All right. Yeah, so let me know if you guys have questions. Otherwise, I will leave you with this, but I think I'm getting a question that I don't actually have the answer for. So the seller property information statements. Yes, that is, you're right, it's a standard form that not a lot of people use, but yeah, you can use it. That's, yeah, for sellers, if you're doing a listing presentation, I would recommend you bringing that and asking those questions, but you're right, no one uses it, and it's a good form to use and to have for sure. All right. Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, these webinars are saved and they're uploaded to our YouTube channel. So there's a link to that on the workplace group, and of course our calendar as well. So I talked a lot about inspections. So I'll remind you guys that tomorrow on Thursday, our webinar is actually with Home Sweet Home Inspections. So he'll talk to you about, what to look for when you're showing properties and answer any of your questions related to that. So join us on Thursday for the home inspector webinar. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Have a great day. If there are no other questions, I will leave you with that. See you on the next webinar. Thanks. Bye.